Hello students and welcome to the automobile engine class. Myself Shankho Ghosh, Assistant Professor of Automobile Engineering Department at Dr. Sudhi Chandra Sood Degree Engineering College under the JIS. So students, few of last classes we started the discussion about the module number 4. And this module number 4 is basically covered the topic that is engine lubrication system. So in the previous few classes we already discussed about the introduction of the lubrication system, its purpose or requirement of this system in automobile. Then we study about the function and the property of the lubricating oil, which is covered already the first part. On the second part we discuss about the classification of the lubricants, their rating and the additives needed for the lubricants, and then we started the discussion about the different methods of the lubrication. Third part we covered the rest of the various types of lubrication methods. Now in this fourth part of this lubrication system we started the discussion about the sorry, this we started the discussion about the wet sump lubrication system. So students, let's start the discussion about the wet sump lubrication system. So here is the notes of this lubrication. So the wet sump lubrication is a basically common and standard oil sump lubrication system in the automobile engine. It is called the wet sump because it contains the oil in just the sump or the oil sump where it is reserving as a where this oil sump serving as a reservoir, and it uses a single oil pump. Through there, oil is circulating. The process seems to fast in this lubricating system because the oil is pumped from to the moving parts directly to the moving parts. The sump is basically made of a thin shaft of stainless metal. The sump is basically made of a thin shaped stainless metal which is used to cover the engine beneath. It collects the oil when the engine is at rest condition. It collects the oil when the engine is at a rest condition. Wet sumps are shaped into deeper section. The wet sumps are shaped into the deeper section and it is mounted at the bottom of the crankcase serving. It is mounted at the bottom of the crankcase serving as oil stored or the reservoir. Through the oil staving often occurs where there are way to prevent it. So basically the wet lubrication system is a system where we use the oil sump, and there we use only one single pump motor to store the lubrication and this and through the pump oil is sucks from the lubrication after the filter and then sent to the various engine components place where frictions are can taken place. So students, now coming to the purpose of this weight sum. The main purpose of the weight sum, that are the engine is basically covered completely. Here the engine is covered completely, preventing the external dirt from the entering. It prevents the external dirt from the entering. Oil sumps also help. The oil sump is also help in the cooling of lubricating hot oil. The oil sumps also help in the cooling of the lubricating hot oil as the vehicle moves. So there is airflow under the sump. There is airflow under the sump which helps to cool the hot oil, which helps to cool the hot oil before entering before sorry, before entering the engine for the lubrication. So this oil sump helps the cooling of lubrication hot oil as a vehicle moves, and there is an airflow under the sump, so that it helps to the cool and helps to the cool the hot oil before it entering the engine for the lubrication purpose. So there are a cooling fin in the sump. So there are a cooling fin in the sump which increase its surface area. So the oil sump helps to keep the oil sump helps to keep the big dirt and prevent keeps the big dirt and it prevent them from the entering the engine. Small dirt is kept. The small dirt is kept by the oil filter. The oil is basically contained. The oil is basically contained which is used for the lubrication, cooling and the cleaning of the engine. There is a dipstick is available through where oil sump allow the oil to be gauged. Oil pan sumps allows oil to drain out so new oil can be installed. So that's why there is a bolt is attached into the oil pan or oil sump. So when we need to drain the oil from the oil sump, we just open the drain nut or the oil nut from the oil sump, and the oil which is used lubrication oil are drained from the oil sump, and after that then seal it and fill to the new oil, means new lubrication oil. So these are the purposes of the weight sump. So here is the picture of the weight sump. So student, you can find out here various things. This one is the basically oil sump. This particular is the oil sump here. This one is the drain plug or drain nut are available here. This is the crankcase zone. So here is the oil is stored here. This one is the oil strainer. So oil strainers, when the pump is in on or run condition, the oil strainer suck the oil from this oil sump. So this pump, so the oil after filter this, so this oil strainer, so here the oil strainer is helps to suck the oil from the oil which is stored into the oil strainer and the suck the oil from this oil pump, and with the help of the strainer it filtered the large particle or impurity which is available in this oil. So then it goes to the oil filter with the help of the oil pump, and then the oil filter it filter it filter the small particles which is available in the lubrication oil. Then it passes to the oil pump, and then it goes to the various way where the oil is needed, the lubrication oil is required. I mean, that means the crankshaft, the camshaft, valve mechanisms, piston, cylinder valve, main bearing, crank pin, piston spin, connecting rod. So in everywhere where the fuel is lubrication oil is required to release to release or reduce the friction, release or reduce the friction in between these two components. And then there is also another component is required here, which is pressure regulator. So with the help of the pressure regulator, when is high pressure is reached, so with the help of this, it come back to the come back to this. The help of this pressure regulator, we can control the flow or pressure of the lubricants through the oil pump. And after entering all the various components, the lubrication oil is need to has returned to his returned and stored into this oil sum. So these are the basic pictures of these are basic schematic pictures of the oil sum of the wet sum lubrication system. So after knowing about the lubrication system, now we need to know about the various components of this lubrication system. So here is the notes of the various components which is required for the lubrication system. The main components of these lubrication systems are oil sump, oil pump, oil filter, strainer, pickup screen, pressure regulator, bypass valve, oil galleries, dipstick, and the pressure regulator. Sir indicator. Here is the pictures of the various components and the parts where lubrication oil is required. So this one is the oil pan where the oil is stored. This one is the oil strainer. So here is the oil drain plug is there, this portions. So after when the pump is open and the oil pressure switch is there, pump is open, the fuel is regulated in this way. So after coming here, oil is filtered here and then passes to the upper portion and the crankcase area, crankshaft. So the crankshaft is passes the main bearing, half bearing, and the crank pin area, and the other portion goes to the camshaft to the maintain the valve mechanism, and after the work it is stored into this oil pan. So these are the basic pictures and these are the main components which is required for the lubricant required to maintain the lubrication system in between the engine. Now start the discussion with this is various size of components different in briefly. So first of all we start with this oil sump. So here is the picture of the oil sump. The oil sump, where sump is an American language and in Canadian language the oil sump is called as an oil pan. So basically oil sump or oil pan are the same things. So it is a low space which collects often the uncondensable liquid such as water or as a chemical. So a sump which can also be the infiltration basin which is used to manage the surface runoff the water and recharge the underground aquifers. So sump can also refer to an area in a cave where the underground flow of water exists in the cave into the earth. So this oil sumps is a place which is used to store the lubrication oil. So you can see in this picture, so this one side has a depth, has a huge depth, and another one is a small depth, and then there is an incline area. So after reaching all the components, after reaching the lubrication oil to the all components, and it is comes in a droplet form and stored here and dropped here, and then it is slightly passes through it and stored into this oil sump or the oil pan. Here the oil basically is used to lubricate the engine moving parts, and it pulls a reservoir. Which is known as the sump or oil sump, which is at the bottom of this engine. here it is used a sump which required the engine to be mounted slightly higher to make the space for it. Often though, the oil in the sump can be sloshed during the hard cornering, starving the oil pump. For this reason, the racing motorcycles and the piston aircraft engines are dry sumped during the scavenging pump and the fuel tank to separate the oil from the air, which is also sucked by the pump. So these are the main components of the lubrication system. Now coming to the oil pump. So here is the picture of an oil pump which is fitted on the cylinder with the engine block. It sucks the oil from the oil sump and sends the oil to the various components of the engine. So oil pump is an internal combustion engine which circulates engine oil under a pressure to the rotating bearing and the sliding piston, here the sliding piston and the camshaft of the engine. This basically lubricates the bearing. This basically helps to lubricate the bearing and it allows the usage of higher capacity fluid bearing. It allows the use of higher capacity fluid bearing and it also assists in cooling the engine as well as its primary purpose for the lubrication as well as its primary purpose for the lubrication. Pressurized oil is increasingly used as a hydraulic fluid to power small actuator. One of the first notable use in this way that was for the hydraulic tappet in the camshaft and the valve actuation. So increasingly commonly recent use may include the tensioner for a timing belt or the variators for the variable valve timing system. So here is the pictures of this. So here you can see here is a picture of an oil pump which is fitted on the engine block. So this one is this shaded portion is showing the oil filter. There is a relief valve spring is available here. This one is the drive shaft. Here is the oil pump body and this one is the skew gear which helps to deliver the oil to the various parts of the engine. Now coming to the next part which is called as the oil filter. So basically oil filter is fitted with this oil pump. The filter is a fine mesh screen. The filter is a fine mesh screen which is used to remove the impurity from the oil, water and air. Oil, water and the air on the ship. The filters are mounted in Paris as a duplex system. The filters are mounted in pair as a duplex system so that one can be used and other is kept on the standby at a time. Here one is used and one is placed at a standby at that time. The filter can be utilized both in low pressure during the suction and discharge the high pressure. The filter can utilized both in low pressure and the discharge time. When it is low pressure means suction time the pressure is low and during the high pressure when it is discharge time it is only filter. So side of the system and it is used to remove the smallest part. It is used to remove the smallest part of dirt which is carried away in the system, which is carried away in the system. The cleaning frequency of filters, the cleaning frequency of the filters basically depends on the type of the filter and is decided by the manufacturers. The schedule is generally included in the plain maintenance system on board. So these are the basic pictures of the oil filter. Now coming to the another part, that is this is the important part, which is called as known as a strainer. Strainer is basically helps. Strainer is a type of filter. Strainer is a type of another filter which is used mostly on the low pressure, or the suction side, and it is basically used to remove the large contamination, particles from the system. So it is because the mesh screen, because the mesh screen opening in the strainer, are bigger in size and are similar to those who coats the filter. If the suction condition is critical, then the scanner can be filtered. Then the scanner can be fitted on the discharge side, and it will purely dependent upon the make. It is purely dependent upon the make and recommendation of the manufacturer. Usually the strainers are cleaned. Whenever they are open. So basically the strainers are clean whenever they are opened up, or when the pressure drop, the filter side is high. So here is the picture of the strainer, which is helps to primary filtration of the stored lubrication oil in the oil sump. So here is filtered the lubrication oil from the large contamination of particles, and then it's sent to the oil filter for the small type of to filter the lubrication from the small type of contamination. Now coming to the another component, which is called known as the pressure gauge. The pressure gauge is an important factor. In the longevity of most IC engines. With the force of the lubrication system, where oil is picked up by a positive displacement, an oil pump, and forced through the oil gallery into the bearing, such as the main bearing, big end bearing, camshaft bearing, or the balance shaft bearing. The other components, such as cam lobes and the cylinder walls, are lubricated by the oil jets. The pressure gauge is provided to confirm the circulation of oil to various parts. This system provides a sufficient lubrication to all the parts, and this favored by most of the engine manufacturers. This is basically used in the most of the heavy duty and the high speed engines. So this oil pressure, the forced lubrication system, which is invented by the Frederick Lanchester. The Frederick Lanchester was invented these things. So here is the picture of the oil pressure gauge, which is fitted on the automobile dashboard to to observe the pressure is available in the lubrication oil. Now coming to the another component, which is called as a dipstick. A dipstick is one of the several manufacturers. The dipstick is one of the several manufacturers measurement device. Some dipsticks are basically dipped. Some dipsticks are basically dipped into the liquid to perform a chemical test or to provide a measure of quantity of the liquid. The most of the familiar example is the oil level dipstick, which is found on the most IC engine. Here is the picture of a dipstick which is fitted in the engine body to understand the is fitted on the stick, which is to understand about the the understand the property of the lubricants, and if the lubricating oil is in sticky condition or is it in good condition. To understand this, to understand that things, we use the dipstick. Now there's another component also available, which is called as the pressure relief valve. Basically, the pressure relief valve is used inside the engine system to maintain the pressure on the lubrication system. If it's required high pressure, then it is filled with the full pore phases, and that time high pressure is generated, and when it is need to release the pressure, that time we open these things, and that time the fuel lubrication oil comes from the main oil gallery, and then it passes through this oil outlet and enter into the oil sump. So for that purpose we use the pressure relief valve. Here is the pictures are showing about the pressure relief valve. This one is the gaskets, the locking nut. Here is the valves are there, and this one is the valve spring. Here is a valve there and valve spring is there. So when it is nut bolt is in if it is in tight condition, then it is placed the spring and inside the valve. So that time this way is the close, and when it is loose, then spring is extend. That time this is an open area. So if we extend this portion, then we can find out this in this as well. So this one is the locking bolt, this one is the gasket or a washer, this one is a valve spring, this one is the valve. So students, here in the fourth part of the engine lubrication system, we discuss about the various we discussed here about the weight sum lubrication system, and as well as we will discuss about the various components of the lubrication system. So from the next class we started the discussion on the crankcase ventilation, ventilation, and the troubleshooting of the is oil lubrication system. So till then, stay at home and stay safe. Thank you so much, students.